Three, two, one. We are live.
Hello, am I audible?
You're audible, please start.
Hello everyone. Here we are to host a meeting on I am how to choose IMT and choosing the best B school which is best for you. Let me introduce Mr. C. He's an associate professor and admission chairperson at the Institute of Management Technology in Nagpur. He holds the degree of MSc in economics with specialization in international trade from the University of Calcutta. Sir is trained in case study based method of teaching at Harvard Business School. He is currently pursuing his doctoral program in the area of management. Sir has more than 23 years of experience and consultancy. He teaches subjects of economics of globalization and cooperation, macroeconomics principle and policies, industrial economics and competitive strategy, and business to the fields of microfinance, political economic policy analysis. He has several national and international journal publications, conference presentation to his credit. Sir has been a corporate trainer, in-house resource person for various corporations in India that include Asian Paints Limited, NTPC Limited, RPG and L&T Industries, Mercedes-Benz Research and Development Unit in Dr. Labs, Hyderabad, Accenture, Bangalore, to name a few. Here are sir.
Thank you, Rajat, for that kind introduction. So without taking any more time of the participants of this webinar, let's start with the topic on which I'm going to make the presentation. That is how to choose a B school that is best for you. See, the whole idea of this webinar is to help you find the B school that is best, not from the perspective of anyone else, that is the society, the academia, the corporations, and various other stakeholders, but that is best from your perspective, you as the student who is enrolling yourself for gaining scale, finding a job, or finding an environment to create a startup, and obviously a long run association with the B school in terms of the alumni network, the industry network, etc. So since finding a B school which is rated as the best is kind of a cliche with so many of the influencers, so many of the mentors, and so many of the other people who some or the other way influence your decision making are telling you about them, I thought it would be more important and more pertinent rather to talk to you to find the school that is going to be best from your perspective and not from anyone else's. So giving that and keeping that in mind, given that and keeping that in mind, let's see what we are essentially going to discuss in the next half hour, 40 minutes of time. And then maybe if time permits, we'll take up some of the questions from you. You are free to put your question in the chat box while the presentation is going on. Now, as far as the traditional choice criteria are concerned, in a sense, how most of us, most of the applicants, most of the future aspirants of MBA and PGDM will choose a B school in terms of their application, because this year it has become all the more important because all the premier B schools, the top rated B school, the B schools that are well known in the map of the business world, They are moving to offline mode of personal interview and group discussion, the final stage of the selection process, which mean unlike the previous years where majority of them were doing it online, you cannot really apply to 10, 15 of them and then attain PI process for all of them, even if it's happening on the same day. Even if it's two or three of them are happening on the same day, you can do that. You appear for one in the morning, at the other in the afternoon, and another in the late evening, and you can do that, right? Now, this time you can't, for the simple reason you have to physically travel to different PI and GD centers and appear there. It's a long process, it takes long hours, and in a day, in a particular city, you would rarely have more than one B school having their processes going on. So, where you apply becomes all the more important this year. It has always been important, but this year, this is particularly important because at the stage of application itself, you will have to give it a thought. Now, let me come back to what we were discussing, that how generally do we choose? What are our choice criteria? The first, obviously, is the return on investment, ROI criteria, in which we look at a B school in terms of its placement record, recent or the past or last few years, the trend. We look at what has been the highest pay package, what has been the average pay package, and whichever way you look at it, the median cost to the company or pay package, essentially. And our idea is that if a B school has a higher average or higher median, that's a B school where I should apply because that's where my ROI is going to be higher. Because we would most of the time believe that we will get somewhere near to the average or the median value for sure. And if we are lucky, we can also get the highest. So the highest at times matters, right? And then if we see that it's more or less the same sort of placement record, our second criteria becomes the ranking. How is the institute ranked in various B school surveys that are conducted by various magazines, various newspaper, news portal, even some MBA portal, MBA admission related portal, some government agencies at times, etc. And our belief is that if the packages are more or less the same, but an institute is ranked slightly higher, it's definitely a better institute. So we opt for it, right? I think majority of you who are attending it will agree that these are the main two criteria, the ROI and the ranking. Along with that, some important factors that also kind of becomes important for at least some of us, if not all of us. The first one would be for all of us. The second one would be majority of us. The next two that I'm going to talk about becomes important for some of us. For example, the recommendations that we receive from our seniors, as in the ones who were 1 year senior to us in our colleges or 1 year senior to us in the coaching institute where I'm enrolled, who is right now pursuing it, PGDM or MBA, or a friend or friends who have already cracked it last year. That year you couldn't appear or you did not crack it. Now they are telling you, your mentors in coaching institutes or maybe an online mentors of various YouTubers, etc. And sometimes the family members, especially your elder brother and sister, if not your own, at least the cousins, they have done it or they have heard about certain institute and they recommend. We go by that, and we tend to prefer B schools that are closer to our home, with the belief that if I stay close by, if I am within 100 kilometers of distance and all, I can quite often visit my home for a short holiday or so, or a long weekend. So that kind of becomes some sort of choice criteria. Of course, there are many others: safety of a city and family association with a B school. There could be many others, but more or less, the first one is definitely the factor. The second, quite an important one. Third and fourth is or are important criteria that we use in selecting a B school. Now, each of these comes with certain set of problems that I'm going to talk to you about, that for which we need a little bit of awareness, because unfortunately we take things at their face value, believing and assuming something, but the reality is slightly different than what appears to be a very simple and straightforward choice. And that's why you need to be aware of that. Let's see. Now, when you look at a B school and its average or median CTC, and you make a calculation as to this is what I'm going to end up with at least, you are missing out an important point here, that a median is about the top 50, and the rest 50 percentage of the students who are graduating, there is no data available to any one of us. So if we make an assumption that I'm going to be in the top 50, again, the issue is what makes you believe that you would be in the top 50? Does your profile match with that of the ones that were in the top 50? It could be the case that most of them were engineers, most of them have work experience, you are a commerce graduate, a freshers, your profile does not match theirs, and it may be the case that you will not fall in the top 50 percentage if that's their trend. That historically they have been placing people with work ex and kind of science and tech background with higher pay packages, while the general stream and freshers, they do not end up with good one. So even if you think that you will be there, you may not be. I'm not saying you cannot be. I'm just giving you some idea as to don't jump to a conclusion like that, right? Plus, there is also the element of what is known as the impact of the outliers. Essentially, it means that your average can get inflated if there are some few very good placement and then most of it being ordinary. In a sense, if you take two persons, one has got 30 and one has got 20 sort of pay package, the average turns out to be 25, isn't it? But one has got 90, one has got 10. The average would be 50. Now, see, in the second case, you see the average for the second case is 50, whereas for the previous one, it was 25. So you will believe that I should choose the second one. But what's the reality? The reality is that there is an extreme value like 90, which is compensating for another extreme value 10 and giving you a picture of 50, which neither of the two persons have got. So you need to go beyond statistics that is shared by B schools on various platforms. And if they are kind of highlighting that that is their USP, you need to think a little closely about it and try to figure out what's the detail of their placement. If possible, get in touch with some of their existing students or alumni and understand more about it rather than just jump to a conclusion that this is the B school of my choice because here the ROI is higher. You may be the one unfortunate one with 10, not the 90. You never know who gets 90. Probably a person who had a work experience where the existing pay package was 70 and after completion goes back to the company with 90 pay package. You are not that person, right? Think about it. I'm not saying you ignore completely, but you need to give it a thought before come to a simple conclusion like that. Now, the ranking part is rather interesting. We look at the ranking and we make assumption about a higher rank institute is a better institute. The question is, do we look at how is the ranking actually done? Which all parameters have been given or considered for overall ranking of the institute? And how many of those parameters are actually relevant to my career ambition and my career goal? For example, say one of the parameters that is considered by a very well reputed ranking agency and institute, majority of us refer to it and we consider that to be the ranking. I'm not going to name it, but you can all understand what I'm talking about. Takes into consideration something like female participation in the workforce or female to male ratio in the faculty or something of that sort, something to do with gender. Now, an institute that does well in that parameter, obviously, it's a laudable thing. It's something we cannot say that it's not an achievement. It is an achievement. This is an important consideration. But if you are somebody who is looking for a career in investment banking, how does it matter how many of the faculty members are female and how many of them are male? It doesn't, isn't it? And therefore, an institute that scores very good in the gender ratio requirement and being ranked very high as a consequence, you have to think about yourself that whether an institute with more favorable gender ratio is a school where you can get a better education about finance and investment banking, etc., etc. Is it relevant to you? So whenever you are looking at ranking and all, my suggestion and advice would be please look at the finer points of what are the criteria being used and how much the institute has scored and which criteria and how many of them are relevant to you. Okay. Now, in terms of the proximity to your home, the location being another choice criteria, I think you should better look at the connectivity of that B schools or the location of the B school rather than the distance from your place. Because, see, if two places are well connected in terms of railway, airways, buses, private vehicle, etc., even if it's a longer distance, the time you take would be much lesser, isn't it? Whereas if the place is not well connected, it's hardly any important railway station in the nearby area, there is no airport in that city, and it's at a very particular corner of a country and not well connected with the rest of the country and all in rail network or roadways and all, you might take much more time, even if the distance may be little less from your house, right? So the connectivity of the location of a B school is more important than the distance. Distance is secondary. A well-connected place is going to get you home much faster and quicker than a place which may be closer but not well connected. Think about it. And finally, if you are going by opinions of the others and not doing your own research and you are not applying your own mind, you expose yourself to the risk of some sort of bias opinion and misinformation. For example, it's quite a human nature. If your senior has opted for a certain B school, he or she is never going to admit that they have made a mistake by choosing it. It's common human nature, right? They will try to defend their choice and they will speak quite highly about the place that they are a part of, which in reality may not be the case. They might feed you with certain misinformation as well, Probably they themselves are not aware of it. They simply went by the placement record and joined there and did not do their own research. And then they cannot tell you all these things. So the opinion you get is not going to be free of bias, or you are not going to get the concrete information if you simply blindly trust the opinion of the other, right? So these are some of the pitfalls of taking the choice very lightly, or thinking that I don't have to do much of research, I don't have to do much of my own search, and I don't have to do much of the thinking. I'll just look at placement and ranking and choose the one that falls into my kind of category in terms of the cutoff, etc. Because your 2 years in an institute, it's not just the 2 years that you spend and the first job that you get, or that is the placement that happens in the campus. It's going to be part of your journey, your professional journey for the next 30, 35 years. Because what you learn during these 2 years is going to impact your performance all your life. And therefore, if you do not get the knowledge and the skill that you are supposed to get from a PGDM or an MBA program, you would struggle all your career. Every time you will feel that you are coming short of the expectations of your superior, your colleagues, your peers, and all, because you have not been given an exposure that was needed for the job at hand. You never got a chance to improve yourself in a way that is needed for the industry, etc. And therefore, and since for majority of you, it's going to be the terminal degree, because after that you will enter your professional life, and very few of you will go for further studies like doctoral, etc. Your terminal degree, your final formal education, is going to have an indelible impact on your lifetime earning and your career. So please take my advice a little more seriously, that you cannot simply go blindly with these sort of things, but have to spend little more time doing your own research, your own findings, your own digging before you apply to a certain B school. So what all you should look into? The first thing you should look into is the accreditation that the institute and the programs of the institute have received from various national and international agencies, various institutions, various organizations. Now, why I'm saying this? Why is accreditation maybe more important than your ranking or your placement record? Because see, every accreditation, say for example, accreditation by ASCSB, international one, or accreditation by NBA, national, or AICT, or say SACS, that is AMDISA, sorry. Now, these are the agencies that provide a certification of quality, that is accreditation, only after very thoroughly and rigorously going through the entire process of the institute in terms of its academic process, its student support process, its process in terms of the industry academia interface. All these things are very closely scrutinized, and in certain cases, for example, ACSB, and to a certain extent, Amnesia, the scrutinization happens over years, not just a few weeks or months, but over the years. They assess the performance of the institute over the years, scrutinize them, visit the campus, check the documents, see the facilities on their own, sending their reviewers. And then only a certification of quality is issued. What essentially does that mean? It essentially means that if an institute is accredited by ACSB or AMDISA or NBA or AICTE, you are going to be part of an institute where the quality of education, the skill development, the placement and student support process is top notch. If it is by national accreditation agencies like NBA, then it is as good as any of the premier B schools in the country. And if it is by ASCSB, then it is as good as any of the premier B schools in the world. And that's more important. Getting an exposure to a learning environment that matches the global and national expectations and standard is much more important than just a random numbers in terms of some years particular placement record, etc. Think about it. The second one that also is another way, a kind of double check of an institute's academic process, is to see to what extent the institute's program has got collaborations with foreign institutions in terms of student and faculty exchange program, collaboration with the industry in terms of joint certification program, a common program that is run by the institute and that industry organization together. Because see, when an American institute decides to enter into an academic collaboration with an Indian institute, they have to make sure that the Indian institute meets the high standards of education that the American institute offers. Then and then only they will send their students to this institute to study for a semester or a trimester and allow students from that institute to come over there and be a part of their academic program for a semester or a trimester. So not only the accreditation, whether an institute has got international student exchange and faculty exchange program, whether it offers a joint certification course with the industry or not, is equally important because that's a second level of check on the quality of the learning and skill development process. The third one you should look for is to what extent the institute program exhibits teaching innovation, learning flexibility, and most importantly, your career goal and career objective with the bouquet of the courses or the bouquet of the programs that they offer, whether there is a matching that is happening between what you want and what the institute offers. And it's not a very difficult task. All premier B schools will share the detail of their program structure, course, and curricula on their websites. And if you can get hold of their kind of brochures, admission brochure, program brochure, there you will see in detail not only the courses that are definitely the core course or compulsory course, but the list of elective courses that you can choose from. Does the B school talk about a program or a course that focuses on business analytics? Is there a course on big data? Do they teach you something advanced kind of language programs like Python? Is there something related to digital marketing, blockchain? Do they use the latest of the softwares to teach things? Is there a collaboration they have with organizations like IBM, KPMG, Bloomberg, and all, where there is a lot of innovative ways in which your regular classroom teaching is being supplemented by a various sort of certification course, short-term course, and additional learning facilities and all? Because see, in today's time and era, if you are joining an institute that has a traditional marketing, finance, OB, HR, economics, and then specialization in marketing, finance, OB, HR, and operation, and that's about it. In the job market, you don't really stand out. In order to stand out in the job market, your CV must have something more than a regular or a vanilla sort of MBA program or PGDM program. And that you'll have to dig out from the websites of the institute or the brochure, admission brochure of the institute, that to what extent the academic process shows innovation, flexibility in terms of the choice, how the program is structured. Does it allow for a lot of choices and freedom to the students, and thereby they can more or less customize the program to suit their requirement? So the collaboration with industry is and should not be limited just to a random certification course or a standalone particular certification program, but rather there is a regular engagement with the industry practitioners in the program itself, in terms of whether the institute allows you the exposure to listen to the top notch persons from the industry by way of either a guest speaker, whether they become your mentor in some of the initiatives that you take, probably a research initiative, or maybe an incubation center sort of things where you feel like creating a startup and see how it works for yourself. Does the institute offer something like this? To what extent they engage industry people in terms of curriculum development, delivery of the lecture, and the learning process? Who are the people who visit the campus? These are important because PGDM or MBA is not a pure academic degree, but it is a program that aims at creating professionals who has to go out in the field and prove themselves in terms of their skills, their knowledge, and you need to get the latest and the best, definitely in the classroom, but also need to be supplemented by what's really happening in the industry. An important thing many of us do not bother to look into, or probably we believe no such thing exists, is whether the program that you are enrolling into offers some generous scholarship and whether you can become eligible for such scholarship. Because see, an institute like IMT Nagpur, if I talk about my institute, offers a scholarship of 20% of the academic fees for all female candidate, right? Which essentially means that for female candidate, the cost of the program is not 15 lakhs. It's almost 20% less of it. And therefore, if you do a calculation of your ROI, your ROI is much higher if you are a female candidate. And if you are a female candidate, obviously you are eligible. But that's the only criteria on the basis of which the scholarship is granted. There is a merit scholarship. So if you have got 90 percentile and above in CAT/SAT, you get 40% of your academic fees by way of scholarship. So basically for you, the course fee is not 15, it's round about 9 lakhs or so, or maybe less. So therefore, your ROI will be much higher in an institute like ours. And there would be some other, of course, I'm sure, where the scholarship can really make a huge difference to your cost of education and eventually the return on your investment. Do a little bit of search on scholarship. What sort of scholarships are available? What are the scholarship criteria? And see if you fit into one of them or maybe more than one of them. And that can change your entire ROI calculation, your cost of education. A lot of your financial burden and stress could be minimized if you get one. So please look into that as well. And finally, You also need to look at how old the institute is, because the age of the institute, the number of years the institute is in existence, has a very huge impact on the alumni network that you are going to be part of from day one. An institute like ours, we are celebrating it. You can see it on the top of it, which is 20-year old. Just imagine the first batch of students who graduated some 20 years, 18, 19 years ago, at what position they would be now in their organization. If you are in an industry for more than 15 years, 16 years, chances are very high that you will be at a very top level, maybe senior most level of the organization. And from day one, by joining this institute, you are indirectly getting connected to the CEO of a Fortune 500 company, perhaps. So if you are looking for a job in that organization, right, or the head of HR and all, if your CV goes there and it shows that you are from the same alma mater that the person is from, you share the same alma mater, you understand that there is some or the other way you have an added advantage. Of course, merit is the choice criteria. No one selects you just because you're from the same institute. But if there is a choice between two persons who are equally intelligent and all, if you come from the same alma mater, you have an advantage. You cannot ignore the emotional connect that alumni share with their alma mater, right? So, from the perspective of networking, right, in terms of your mentoring, in terms of possibly funding of your startup, you can tap into thousands of alumni, and many of them, maybe hundreds of them, at a very senior position and all in a point of influence. They can come to your assistance. You can tap into them. You can tap into the alumni network for getting support from them. And that's something you cannot ignore. So, all I'm saying in my entire presentation, my focus is that when you are thinking of investing 2 years of your life and quite a few lakhs of rupees for a certain education from a B school, please do not go by some of the shortcut methods of choosing it. That I look at the pay package and I select a B school. I don't look at anything else, because my assumption is if the pay package is higher, I'm going to end up with a higher or a better placement and I'll get a higher ROI. Not necessarily the case, because there are a lot of things that go in the final processes for which we have no way of finding out. The last 50%, what do they get, right? Who gets the highest pay package? What is their profile? We have no way of knowing it. And therefore, if you are not something like the ones who are getting the highest or the top 50 percentage and all, choosing that B school may turn out to be a disaster for you. Or if you are just going by some ranking, where the ranking is based on parameters that are not relevant to you, you are choosing a B school that again is going to be a disaster for you if you simply go by that. You have to do your own research. You'll have to spend more time. You'll have to spend a kind of greater effort and energy in identifying the school that is best suited for you. And it's not very difficult, you know. The websites are there. That's considered to be a reliable source. So, a B school you are thinking of, please go to their website and look for things like accreditation. How many accreditation the institute and the program of the institutes have received, right? Look at the collaboration. Again, you will find that in their program structure or even on their website, it might be highlighted that how many industry associations they have, right? How many foreign institutes they have a tie up with, and how many exchange programs have happened, how many students have visited in recent time, right? You need to see that, because getting an exposure to a foreign country and a foreign institute for 3 to 6 months can be a life altering experience for you. A lot of prejudices, a lot of misconception we may have about certain cultures can completely go away, and you can see the transformation in your outlook if you are spending time abroad, right? And obviously, if you are not going, students from the foreign countries are sitting next to you in the classroom, and you develop a bond over a period of time. That can also be helpful. In future, when you are traveling to that country, they can be of your assistance. You can think about a long run collaboration, etc., etc. In digitized era, all these are possible, right? So I'll not take much of your time. I'll just say that do your research, go beyond the obvious and the shortcut methods, and look for these key elements. And then maybe you can look for the other ones that are also important. There is no denial of it. But don't consider them as the only parameter, right? I'll end my session here, and we'll spend another 10 minutes or so taking up some questions. If there is any, please put them on the chat box. Rajat may help me out in finding those questions.
Yes, sir. Actually, sir, they are asking on the YouTube live which MBA to focus on, because they are actually confused between marketing and finance,
So,
like
how to
that.
choose the specialization? Now, specialization,
Yes, sir.
majority of the premier B schools will not insist on the very first day itself, in a sense that if you are joining the regular program, which is not a for example, in our case, we have PGDM and we have PGDM finance and PGDM marketing. So if you are a PGDM student, not a PGDM finance or a marketing student, you don't have to make that choice immediately after joining. You get 6 months time to test the water and choose the one. And if you have to choose from the very beginning, my advice would be you talk to some of your mentors, some of your seniors, and find out that to what extent these different programs emphasize on different set of skills and whether you have those skills. Generally, the belief is if you are good with numbers, you go for finance. And if you have a better kind of outgoing personality, you go for marketing, which may not always be true, right? If you are in finance, but you are into uh, kind of a profile where you need to sell financial products, you have to be outgoing. And even if you are in a marketing profile, but you are more into the strategizing the marketing policies and all, you'll have to be very good with data crunching and all, right? So the traditional thoughts do not work. You have to ask yourself that which one you would really want to do your PGDM in, and it's your own call. No one can tell it for you. You have to decide on your own. You can look at the various courses, what kind of courses that you will be exposed to for different programs, and figure out for yourself which suits you the most. As far as an institute is concerned, no institute offers a program that is better than the other programs. It's never the case, right? All programs are equally good. The programs are as good as the institute is. Right? Yes.
Sir, someone is asking about the GMAT score cutoffs for the
The cutoff differs from year to year. Last year, I think the cutoff was 500. This year, it might go up, it may come down a little bit, but anybody who is around 500, I would advise that they have a fair chance of getting shortlisted for PI and GD process. Are there any more questions, Rajat? You need to unmute yourself. All right, fine. So if there are no more relevant questions, we can conclude this particular session. If there are any last words by anyone, please let us know. All right, with this, we end this session. Thank you very much for attending it. I hope I have given you enough points to ponder over and think about. And definitely, when you make your choice of a B school, you keep them in mind and choose the one that is best for you, right? Rajat seems to have some additional question. Is there any more question, Rajat? Please unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, Rajat.
Yes, sir, I'm muted.
Fine. Thank you very much. We end the session there. Take care. Bye. And all the best to all of you.
Yes.